Alright, what's up guys? This is FifthDread from FifthDread.com, and I haven't done a video in a while, but I figured I would do a quick video. I recorded a really long video, and it turned out to be over 30 minutes long, and I don't think you guys want to sit through that. Maybe you do. But I figured I would do smaller videos, kind of in segments, based on the subject. So this subject is going to be the PlayStation 4 Controller. During the video I made that I'm not going to put up, I talked about how I like the controller and my opinions on it, and I want to talk about it. So, first off, let me show you the PlayStation 4 controller. Odds are you have seen this other places on the web. I actually don't have a PlayStation 4 yet, but I went ahead and bought a controller to use it with my PC and to get a feel for it, because you can actually use this on your PC. It has to be plugged in right now. The Bluetooth, from what I've researched, isn't working yet. Also, you can use it on your PS3, but you cannot use it with Bluetooth. You have to use it plugged in on the PS3 as well. You can also use it on your Android phones, but it has to be plugged in. It'll be recognized as soon as you plug it in, and then you can play your emulators and everything like that. So I was able to get that to work fairly quickly. So my initial impressions of the controller. Let me tell you my background a little bit. I started, playing video games from Nintendo. You had a nice square, box, 2 buttons, A, B, and ever since then I've played every single console under the sun. I have my preferences over time. I did like the PlayStation original controller at one time, the Dualshock 3. This is for the PlayStation 3. Hasn't really changed much since the original PlayStation days, with the exception of the actual analog sticks weren't originally in the PlayStation 1 up until a few years after that, or whatever. They actually added analog support to PlayStation 1, and then ever since the PS2 and then the PS3, they've had analog, and they added things like motion to the controllers as well. And right now we're sitting on DualShock 4 for the PlayStation line, and I have to say I'm extremely impressed with this controller. The PlayStation 3 DualShock 3 controller, I was not a fan. Ever since the DualShock 3 controller, I was a big fan of, in this gen, which is now last gen, but I'm going to say current gen up until the Xbox One is out. The PlayStation 3 versus the Xbox 360 controller, I have to say my preference had to be the Xbox controller. This is my Xbox 360 controller. This is for the Halo 4 edition. Xbox, I bought this because I love Halo, and I've owned a lot of Halo Edition Xboxes in my day. The original green Halo Edition Xbox, when it was just Xbox, Xbox, the first one, not Xbox One, but I had the green one with the completely green see-through controller, and I figured it was about time to revive the Halo Edition Xbox by purchasing this one. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of use out of this Xbox, with the exception of Halo and a little bit of Red Dead Redemption. But the controller, it remains to be one of my favorites. You can see here the joystick design on the Xbox 360 is my preferred design now. The analog sticks being here traditionally, if you want to call the PlayStation controller traditional, seeing as it was the first with analog control. The sticks are right here, and for many people that got used to gaming like this, that was fine. But for me, FPS didn't become popular on the consoles until the Xbox 360 did it with Halo, with Call of Duty, and it was the first time where FPS on the consoles was really nailed. They figured out how to make it comfortable for gamers. They no longer had to use the keyboard and mouse to have accurate control. Of course, they did introduce things like aim assist and things like that, but that's besides the point. You could actually play a game, a quality FPS on the console now, and that's the Xbox made that possible. Not with the original Xbox, controller, which was pretty big, but when they slimmed it down, that controller was really good. And then for the 360 controller, it just refined on the amazing ergonomics. I think it feels good in the hand. You got that really good grip on the controller, which I feel like is very important for how it feels in your hand and how where your thumbs rest when you have that grip. I feel like that's a very important thing. Where your fingers rest on the top, the triggers, as you can see, I'm getting in depth with it. But this controller, the design of it, this is the best controller ever made. I would say the feel of it, it's a really quality controller. Now, you do have some people that do prefer the Dualshock 3, and to those people I say, I don't know how. The Dualshock 3, you hold it in your hand, and it's a little bit small. You can see the bottom of my hands kind of just don't have anywhere to grab. But when you do grab, your fingers kind of collide with this and don't really sit anywhere. In fact, they kind of just hit this, and you don't really feel like you're gripping anything. You're kind of resting your fingers on this, and unlike the 360 controller where you got this solid grip with all of your fingers, you don't get that with the PlayStation 3 controller. Also, the analog sticks, after you do achieve this grip, if you want to call it a grip, your fingers, your thumbs rest on the D-pad and on the buttons. So when you go to use this, I feel like I'm stretching. Also, the analog sticks on this controller, I always feel like there is a lot of movement from 0 to edge. I feel like it's really derpy almost compared to the precision that I would get from the Xbox 360 controller. I feel like there's less movement, but I have more precision. I can move quickly because of this from edge to edge. I don't have to feel like I'm derping from one edge to the other. So when I picked up the PlayStation 4's DualShock, the first thing I did was the grab, just to pick it up with one hand, and instantly just was like, wait a minute. Oh my god. Oh my god. Like you pick it up and you're just like, it feels natural just to kind of just to grab it, and I'm like, wait a minute. Oh my god, it's like, oh man, I got this. Like, it just feels right. You can now grip the controller. You have a full grip. Your fingers don't collide with anything. You can just rest your hand on it so naturally. The trigger, your fingers rest on the triggers very naturally. You can hit the buttons very naturally. Your thumbs can very easily rest on the D-pad and the buttons, and also very easily rest on the joysticks, which means I don't have to change. I don't have to feel like I'm stretched to use the analog sticks. The give, I don't know if it's it feels a lot less derpy. The concave, I think that's how you say it, when you have the inlay or whatever. It's no longer a where's the PS3? You see how it is rounded, and now it has the area that's kind of inlaid. That's really great for control. You have precision movement there. So, initial impressions, and also it's very lightweight and feels great. The texture on it is not like solid plastic like the PlayStation 3 DualShock 3, which feels like hard plastic and very slippery. The texture on the PlayStation 4 feels very quality. The only thing, my complaint, you can see how it has high gloss on the D-pad and the button area. This area can look sort of, you can see fingerprint kind of things on it, but it does make the controller look sleek. But personally, because it can get fingerprints and things, I'm not the biggest fan of the glossiness, but it does look nice and it doesn't really hurt me at all. So I'm not going to complain about something like that. Yeah, but if you look at the controllers side by side with the DualShock 3, the DualShock 4, the difference, it really is a really large difference. I'm kind of looking at my recording as I do this. But the difference, you can tell the shape, the DualShock 3, the buttons, the layout, it appears to be the same. The buttons may be closer together on the DualShock 4, ever so slightly. The D-pad feels a little bit better than the PlayStation 3, DualShock 3. The joysticks, though, they're night and day better. I cannot stand to play with this controller just because it does not feel right in my hands. Every time I'm holding the DualShock 3, I'm constantly thinking about, I wish I was holding the Xbox 360 controller, just because of how much better it feels. But now that the PlayStation 4 has included a very solid controller, I honestly can say, kudos to Sony for their design. The touchpad, a lot of people think it's gimmicky, but it really is something that I would say is amazing to have. Think of it like this, like the console's web browsing is annoying without a mouse. To be able to use this as a mouse, like a trackpad on a laptop, being able to go through web pages, click on links, it clicks in, that's going to be a really cool feature. Being able to swipe and stuff, that's going to be a really awesome thing to have to navigate through your browser and things like that. The share button and the options button are basically start and select, but the fact, the positioning of them is a little awkward at first because they're kind of like in like those places you would never think a button to be, but they actually do work really well, and they're not hard to press with your thumbs. They're actually, you don't have to reach or anything. You can kind of just get to them. The fact it has a speaker on it, I mean, this thing is loaded with features. It has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, so you can plug in any pair of headphones and have your voice communication. Some people are saying you can play your game sounds through your headphones from your controller. These are amazing, amazing features. I can't verify that. Like I said, I don't have the PlayStation 4 yet, but I do have the controller, and I must say it's a very impressive controller. If I had to review this controller and give it a rating out of 5, I would say it's definitely a 5. Because, before it was just a no-brainer 360 controller. Now, my experience with the Xbox One is limited. I haven't played with the Xbox One controller, so I cannot tell you if the Xbox One controller is anything better or worse than the PlayStation 4's. I will say that if you're considering one or the other, based on the controller, you won't have to worry about the PlayStation 4's controller. It is a good controller. I do have experience with the Wii U Pro controller, or I think that's what they're calling this. Let me see if it says it on the back. No, it doesn't appear to, but this is the Wii U's gaming kind of pro controller. Now, if you look at it, the joystick placement is kind of interesting. Rather than being like Sony and having both at the bottom, or being like Microsoft and having one at the top and one at the bottom, they went and had both at the top. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, personally, if you think about how your thumbs rest on the controller, this controller, your thumbs naturally want to be on the joysticks, okay? Which is good if you play games that primarily use the joystick. For this controller, the PS4's, your thumbs want to naturally rest here on the buttons. So if you use the buttons a lot, that would be good for you. At the same time, it doesn't feel strange to have your thumbs here either. Same thing with the Xbox 360 controllers. If I had my hand like this on the joysticks, it doesn't feel odd. If I had one on joystick and one on buttons, it doesn't feel odd. But it definitely, I don't know, I tend to have it like this because I play shooters. But yeah, I don't think this Wii U controller is bad by having the placement like this. It is different though. Using the D-pad, it just feels kind of weird at first because you're not used to this layout. The D-pad definitely feels solid because I feel like Nintendo does have a really good D-pad. They always have. Really fast, responsive. The buttons feel well. designed. The triggers on the Wii U controller, I will say, are not good. While they work just fine, the I'm gonna say it's not L2 R2, it's RZLZ or ZLZR. Okay, because traditionally on the GameCube controller they had a Z trigger. Now it's Z left, Z right. So they're actually buttons. They're not analog like most controllers are. The 360 has analog triggers where they actually have a 0 to 100 analog signal. So if I'm playing a racing game, I could hold it down halfway and be going like normal maintaining speed. Whereas if I'm flooring it, I'm literally flooring it and gaining speed. That's not the case on this button type layout where it's on or off. The PlayStation 4's trigger is analog as well, so you have that 0 to 100 to 50. You have all the spectrum, and actually I have to say the springiness on the triggers is very satisfying to pull. It's like ooh, The buttons they feel good sized. The trigger like buttons I'm used to. If you look at it, it's kind of like gun triggers almost. You pull the trigger. The PlayStation 4's is kind of a wider button, but it does feel good. It feels like a pretty solid button. It doesn't feel like a trigger, but they do feel really. Your finger, the surface area of your finger does push down on it really well, and it does feel good. Buttons feel good. D-pad feels pretty good. Not as good as it feels better than the Dualshock 3, and it feels playable. Perhaps that the D-pad on the Wii controller is a little bit better to rock your finger on, as it is one entity. But I'm not a D-pad enthusiast, so I can't really say much about it. But overall, I thought I would give you the impressions I have of this controller. I gotta say that when I do get my PlayStation 4, when I finally do get it, I'm gonna be very satisfied with this controller. So far, like I've said, I've done this with the PC. It's worked really well. You can see I'm plugging in some headphones into it, which is pretty sweet. I don't know if the microphone on these Samsung headphones will work. This came with my Galaxy S4. I'm gonna try that out. I know right now, if you plug this into your PS3, the PlayStation button I'm not getting to work. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you the light bar. That's how the light bar looks. The thing about the light bar is, it's gonna look like that, and I think it glows like a red when it's charging. But the light bar, I guess it changes color on the PlayStation 4, but I don't know. I haven't really used that yet. But anyway, really solid opinion. I'd love to hear what you guys think. When the Xbox One controller comes out, I may pick up one of those, use that on my PC as well, just to kind of get a feel for how that feels, and maybe give you a comparison video on my opinions and what one I prefer. But as a gamer, I have to say that I'm very impressed with the PlayStation 4 controller. It makes all the difference. That's one of the biggest reasons that I had bought a Xbox 360, is I was in love with the Xbox original controller, not the big one, but the redesigned one, and the joystick layout was worlds difference than the DualShock 3, which I did not prefer and I felt was derpy. So, yeah, that's my opinion. If you have a different one, that's fine. This is an opinion video and my review of the PlayStation 4 controller. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys around.